afternoon, everyone. The most commonly known method of forensic analysis is DNA analysis or DNA typing, which is a technique that is used by forensic experts in collecting objects and samples of the body and material to determine the identity of an individual based on their unique DNA profiling. Or it could also be said as an encrypted set, which is to be decrypted, that reflects an individual as a composition of a person. Today we have with us Dr. Sonal Jain, who has worked as a research scholar in IIT Roorkee and also as a visiting researcher in Johns Hopkins University and is currently a DST Inspire faculty at University of Delhi. It is an honor to have you, ma'am. So let's begin with the interview, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Isha, for having me.
Okay, ma'am. You've been working in the field for so long. What, as per you, was the most astonishing fact you've came across so far?
Okay, so my forensic biology journey is basically the research started when I joined my PhD at IIT Roorkee. I cleared my JRF and my MSc, and then I started my research in my first year of PhD. So while working in the field, the most astonishing thing is that apart from fingerprints, the specimen which we get for forensic biology are the only ones through which we can identify an individual. Other evidences, if we talk about, they can link the crime scene, but the forensic biology evidence, if we talk about the blood and other biological fluids, for example, saliva, semen, etc., they directly link the criminal to the crime scene. That means they help in the individualization or the identification of the criminal. So, if you say that even if the tiniest of evidence, like a hair or for example, a little nail scrapings or the skin scrapings inside the nail of the victim, if those scrapings, using those small tiniest of cells, we can identify the person by extracting the DNA from those samples. So I think that's the most exciting thing.
Yes, ma'am, that is rightly said because most of the evidences are used as a corroborative evidence, but it is only DNA or it is only the gene profiling which is done, which is the main evidence when compared to forensic science.
Yes.
So moving on to the next question, ma'am. What was the incident or the moment that inculcated your interest in this particular field? Like what was that factor that brought you in this field?
Yeah, actually, so luckily I have cleared my JRF when I was pursuing my MSc only, and by God's grace in the first attempt. And I was looking for the field. I was searching for the field. That time it was my final year of MSc, and my dissertation was in question documents. But after completing my MSc and before joining for my PhD, I had this golden opportunity to work as a research trainee in Forensic Science Lab, Madhuban, Haryana. I worked there for like 2.5 months, and in the DNA division, especially, I was there for 2.5 months, which that inculcated my interest in this particular field, that I have to do something related to DNA profiling. It was really exciting. I no offense, but I would say that it was more exciting than question documents to me. So that was the moment.
All right, ma'am. Okay, moving on to the next question because this is one of my most favorite topic on which you've worked as one of your research projects that involved the study of ancient DNA analysis regarding ostriches present in the Indian subcontinent. What were your observations, ma'am, in that? Were they similar to your initial hypothesis or there was a deviation in the final result that you got?
Yeah, so that was that is a 5.5 year long journey, which started in 2011 when I took admission at IIT Roorkee. So first of all, I would just little bit elaborate on ancient DNA. It's basically the DNA from the fossils. The fossil samples which I took were the ostrich eggshells. And the reason for choosing the samples was that my co-guide, who was in IIT Roorkee, he has some samples with him. And further on, I went to the sites and collected more samples. My initial hypothesis was whatever the results which we got after our practical or after our the whole PhD, were in the line. What was our initial hypothesis? The initial hypothesis was like ostriches were present in India, and due to when the human civilization, they moved to India from Africa, so they ate the ostriches, and because of that, the mass killing of the ostriches, they are not now present in India. That was in line of that, and we were able to prove that with the help of DNA analysis.
That is very well, ma'am, because when I was going through the paper, I had this doubt like what was the initial and what all were the final observations, and finally I got to know, and I'm clear with all this doubt. So moving on to the next question, ma'am. What are the various techniques that could be incorporated so as to enhance the chances of DNA extraction from a sample in the cases such as if we are getting a decomposed DNA or various other samples where general techniques fail to give the clue about the evidence? What can be the other techniques?
Okay, so if we talk about the cases, okay, let me just elaborate here. As you have introduced me as Diversity Inspire faculty, so that is the recent award which I have cleared, and government is providing me with the fellowship of rupees 35 lakhs for a period of 5 years so that I can pursue my research. And I am happy to tell you that the work is on this basis only, the question which you have asked. Like the cases when you have no clue. So in those cases, basically the forensic science, as you're a student of forensic science, you know that it's a science of comparison. We need one evidence and another evidence to compare with it. If you are having any sample on the crime scene, then you need a sample from the suspect to compare it with, right? But if there is no sample present at the crime scene, then what will you do? So, or if you have no suspect to compare it with, then how will you go about it? So the project which I have proposed is based on DNA methylation. DNA methylation, if any sample which is found at the crime scene, we can analyze the DNA, and using the DNA methylation, we can get to know what is the age of the person and how the person looks like. My project currently, which I'll be working on, I'm going to start it in University of Delhi on 1st of January. So that project revolves around telling the person's age using DNA methylation and forensic DNA phenotyping. FDP we call it, forensic DNA phenotyping. So if you have an unknown sample and you will run certain tests, then you can have an estimate of a person's age. I'm not saying that you can get the exact age, he's 32 years old or 35 years old. That would be like you can say a range, 2 to 3 years plus minus, and that is good enough. At least you will be getting to know whether the suspect, he belongs to an age group of 18 to 21 or 25 to 30. So that would give us conclusive results. And the forensic DNA phenotyping, which I am talking about, that will give the facial characteristics, how his hair looked like, what is his skin color, what is his eye color. So that is the thing like which we should be focusing on more when there is no other clue present.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the information, and I wish you all the very best with the research work, because this is the need of the hour. Like the topic in which you're working, this is something that is much needed in current time. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Ma'am, what, as per you, are the shortcomings in our country? Because all of us very well know the actual condition of forensic science in our country.
Right.
So, what, as per you, are the shortcomings and are the problems that we're facing in the country right now, with like on the aspect of forensic biology or the whole forensic science as a team or as a whole? So, and what do you feel that we can overcome that? Like, what all should be done?
So this is the thing like which I have been when I was a student in BSc, then I also was trained at forensic science lab, and during my MSc also I was trained at forensic science lab. The one thing which I have observed is the pendency of cases in the forensic labs, and there could be many reasons, which I think there are many reasons for this shortcomings. This is like we don't have that much, maybe we can say, staff there. According to me, if like they can appoint more people there in the forensic science lab, then the cases, they will be solved very quickly. Three factors I would say, I would point out, which are needed in forensic science lab. The result should be fast, because if the justice delayed, then it is justice denied. See, if a rape victim is there, if we'll say the case of Nirbhaya, like our heart really aches by looking at that, the person who were responsible for those, the accused who were responsible for those. It took us like long 6 to 7 years uh, to like to give them appropriate punishment. So the whatever the labs, whatever the results, they should come out, it should be very fast, so that the justice should be provided at the appropriate time, and the result should be conclusive. If the results are not conclusive, any innocent person behind the bars is like 100 criminals, we can say, those who are not. So any one innocent person, if you say is behind the bars, that is not correct. So the result should be conclusive and should be appropriate. Third thing is the method which we have to use for the analysis. They should be cheap and easily done, easily available. So the cost really does matter. So if we like appoint more people and use more technology, and the fast can be done by appointing more people, and the conclusive can be done by using the state of art technologies in the field of DNA. So like we can get better results, and we can like move ahead in the career, move ahead in the forensic science field as other countries are doing.
Surely, ma'am, these are the steps that should be taken. And now, moving as we're talking about the criminal and justice system, so the next question is related to that. Ma'am, what is, as per you, CRPC Section 53, which is regarding the collection of DNA samples from the victim as well as the accused? Is that appropriate, or are there certain amendments to be done in that section? Like, are there certain things to be done? Because this is a question, because at certain point of time, that section comes as a question. Like, at certain point, it against the privacy, and there are other
Right.
lots of human rights that come across. So, is it right, or there are amendments to be done?
Um, it's a very tricky question, because like I would say it has both parts. Because if you want uh, if you want that the right punishment should be given to the accused, and the punishment should be based on the science and law, then we must have appropriate evidence against him. As I have said, that one innocent person behind the bars is really wrong. And in this, I mean, whatever the situation is currently going on in our country, there are certain cases where even the females, they sometimes the case is not there, and they sometimes create a false case. So we have to consider that fact also. So if the collection of evidence from the victim should be done properly, because if she has gone under such scenario, some sexual assault or some rape, then look at the medical condition, or the whatever the traumatic condition she is going under. So we have to look that fact also. And the police officers, they should also know, they should also understand whatever the situation she or her family is going on. Because the rape or whatever these things, the sexual assault, this is still a taboo in our country. The families, they look down, they walk with their looking at the floor, their eyes at the floor, thinking like, in what scenario we are, what has happened to our family, what has happened to our daughter. So I think that thing should be kept really private. And the police officers who are doing such collection, they should cooperate with the girl. And the girl also think that if she will give proper collection should be done, and if the evidence should be matched, would be matched with the proper accused, then it would be easier to give punishment to the accused. And if if these point will be considered by our police officers, then I think maybe we can add certain regarding amendments. I think a lawyer would be better to answer that. But for me, like for giving the evidence, maybe you can add some points that it should be make really really private, and there should be people who can console the victim also and the family also about this, and we can go for it.
Surely, ma'am, these are the, like, there are these amendments that should be incorporated, because as you said, of a rape victim, like, she is not only like, she has to go through that trauma once again that she
Yeah.
has faced like earlier. So there are amendments that should be incorporated. So I'm moving on to the next question. what, as per you, is the near and the far future of DNA analysis in the aspect of forensic and the other fields, considering in its involvement with the investigation, but using other fields as well? Because as we all know that forensics is generally an applied field. It takes the
Yeah.
knowledge of different fields. So what, as per you, is the future of DNA analysis and forensic?
Yes,
Near
as near and far. Okay. So as I was telling you about this project, so we can consider this DNA methylation part, which I was telling you about my project, as the near future. And the far future, I would really say, and the points which I have already highlighted, then the techniques should be so fast and so conclusive, that the result which we are getting, we should be able to solve the case within few days. And talking about the near and far future, there are certain limitations, like the quantity of evidence we are finding at the crime scene. See, the evidence which is found at the crime scene is left unintentionally by the culprit at the crime scene. He is not leaving a lot of evidence at the crime scene so that we can easily go and catch him or her. But the amount of evidence which is left at the crime scene is unknowingly or unintentionally by the accused. So there are certain shortcomings when we say about the whatever the evidence which we have found at the crime scene, uh, is literally the quantity is very low. So we should be getting into how to get the maximum information from the very low quantities. Whatever the quantities which are available, how to get the maximum DNA out of the very less amount of saliva available, or even in certain cases, if a person is involved in a rape crime and he has washed off the stains, then how can we recover the semen stains or the vaginal stains, vaginal fluid from even the washed clothes? So the research, as you guys are our future, so I would say that you should look for what are the shortcomings, why the field is lagging behind. So you guys should come up, you guys should look for such topics like which should be used. We should not do a research on a topic just to complete our PhD or to go about it. I have done my PhD on a topic, so I have extracted the DNA on the samples which are like 25,000 to 40,000 years old. So we should be able to use same technology in this field also, like if the samples are really decomposed or the samples are really in low quantity, so how to go about it so that no even a single victim should go without justice. Yeah.
very well said, ma'am. Moving on to another question related to your research only. What was the most difficult step that came across? Because, ma'am, it is seen that most people are just a bit cut off from the research just because of the difficulties that are faced, that of the uncertainty and the difficulties that are in the path. So what was your most difficult step, or what was your most difficult thing that came across in your path?
Okay. So there were many. There were not. It was not a single thing. I uh, I was more like a fresher when I passed my MSc and directly went to the institution like IIT. So choosing a topic was the first most difficult thing, because I was a single person who was at IIT from a forensic background. So I need to take a topic which is which has the application for forensic science also, and it includes everything. So firstly that thing, secondly the facilities. After choosing the topic, finalizing everything, I realized that the facilities which I am looking for are not available. Certain facilities are not available there at that institution. So I had to move on to another institute, CCMB Hyderabad, to conduct my further research. Another thing is like the whenever I was when I was trying for the extraction of DNA from such fossils, the extraction technology, it took us like around 1.5 years to whatever the extraction technology, to finalize that extraction technology. So for once that extraction technology was finalized and we was able to, the method was proper and we were able to extract the DNA from fossils, then it was quite an easy path compared to.
Thank you so much, ma'am. There was one more thing that you talked about DNA methylation. So can you tell can you tell all of us in a bit depth what actually DNA methylation is? Because even I know just a short, just a small part of that. So can you please elaborate more on that particular topic, like what exactly we do in DNA methylation and how can that be implemented in forensic? Because this is something that is really very new and very fascinating in these periods. So
So actually we have there is something called CPG islands, okay, in our DNA. So at those particular sites, there's those CPG islands. uh, with As the age passes on, those CPG islands, there is an attachment of methyl group on those CPG islands. So whenever like we sequence the DNA, we look for those sites, those CPG islands, and the amount of methylation, it increases with the increase in age. So the percentage of methylation which will be available there, that is directly proportional to the person, the age of the person. So jitna zyada, whatever the how the age will increase, the methylation will increase with that. So we calculate the percentage. We apply certain statistical formulas, and we look for how much there is increase in the methylation in those particular sites, those CPG islands, and then we calculate age on that basis. So this is just the basic of that.
okay, ma'am, thank you so much. Moving on to the last question. What should be inculcated or what could be said as the most important ingredient for being a good biologist or a geneticist or a good forensic biologist if talking in specific with the field? Like what as per you are the major ingredients that should be inculcated?
I think there is no special thing required. Every person is special on its own. I would just say that please, whatever the difficulties are coming into your field for research or anything, just don't back out or don't be afraid of that. Like if I look back, there were very low moments during my research when I was not getting my results. Sample collection was also a very tough part, and DNA extraction was the toughest part there. And there were certain months I was without any result. So I would say that a good, any researcher, not even a forensic biologist or a forensic toxicologist, any researcher, I think you should keep moving. Someone has told me like opportunities are like a running horse. You should keep jumping. So whenever the horse will be passed by and you are jumping, you can just catch the horse. If you are standing still, you won't be able to catch it. So any researcher, anything, you just keep looking for opportunities and just work hard and never be afraid of any failures. You will overcome all the failures.
Thank you so much, ma'am. On this note, we come to an end of the interview. And thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time and sharing such knowledgeable insights with us. Ma'am, is there something that you wanna tell to our viewers and our listeners?
Yes, I would say that people usually, the mostly this community forensic people, they think forensic science at certain point. I think each and every student who is doing BSc and MSc, they think whether our decision was right or wrong. But I would say just look around. Not me. As I was discussing here, the Dr. Sumit, Dr. Surbhi, and so many people. If you look around and if you will put certain amount of hard work, nothing is impossible. You just have to work in the right direction. All my students of my BSc, MSc, even during all my classes, I keep telling them, just look for the right opportunity and grab it. And never feel disheartened. Those who are in their masters, I would just say, just prepare for your UGC NET JRF, get your JRF cleared, and then you can apply for any research position. Whatever it is, just look for the opportunities and try to grab them as much as you can.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much for spending your time.
Thank you.